Alrighty, welcome to season 3, episode 3 of the Sports Talk with Duey podcast. I'm with a special guest, the director of storytelling and multimedia content for Pitt Athletics, formerly a writer for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, is Abby Schnable. Abby, how's your summer been going?
It's been going great. Busy, started a new job here, but have been churning out some fun content, gotten to go on a couple of fun trips with volleyball star Olivia Babcock, but also the football team in Charlotte. And it's been nonstop, and it's not going to get any slower, but I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Yeah, it's going to keep picking up with the football team starting up, the soccer team and the volleyball team all starting up. I thought I really wanted to dig into all the fall sports teams. I didn't think it was anyone better I could ask to cover all the sports. So thanks for coming on. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. I've produced a handful of podcasts about all these teams now, so I feel like I can really get you at least the basics, but definitely can get into the nitty-gritty some places.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So I guess for you, how's your transition been to this new role?
Yeah, it's been good. It's a lot different in the sense of, I am not necessarily doing as much analysis or like depth chart talk. I'm really getting to know our athletes and getting to tell their stories, whether that's, personal stories, which I've done a little bit less of, but I've done a lot of behind the scenes stuff lately with, I wrote about a Mason Heinstall practice that no one else gets that kind of access. So that was cool. Or going to the SBs and the College Women's Sports Awards with Olivia Babcock and writing the behind the scenes of that too. Like they're just unique experiences that I wouldn't have gotten any other way. And it's different, but it's nice, and I'm having a good time with it. And I think that's what's most important.
I guess, did you meet any famous people at the SBs?
We sure did. We sure did. I'm trying to think of the good ones. I mean, so I didn't meet Jason Tatum, but he did walk right by us. And
Wow.
I'm a St. Louis native. So I was very excited about seeing him. We chatted with Cam Hayward quite a bit while at the after party. We chatted with Alona Marr, came over and talked with Olivia and Dan for a bit. DJ Khaled walked by us and actually touched Olivia, and she freaked out for a minute, which honestly, same. I probably would have too if I wasn't so frazzled all over the place. Michaela Schifrin, got to meet her, the alpine skier. So a wide variety of different athletes, which was really cool.
That's insane. I was watching it. It was such a cool event. I'm a Knicks fan, so that was a lot of fun. We won all the awards. I
Yeah,
did
well, and then
see
it helps
Olivia.
that it's in New York too. So you want all the
That's also
awards.
true.
Very New York heavy. So
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess with your new role, is this something new with the athletic department? Like, is this something Allen Greene wanted to do in this new environment of college sports? So you make this new, I guess, what's the word, department kind of?
yeah, so we launched our storytelling and multimedia content initiative at the beginning of July, and it is something that they have been working on for the past, I'd say probably since January. They've really amped it up, and yeah, Alan is kind of it's his brainchild in a way. He wanted to find a way to give our fans more, whether it's the written stuff and writing about the behind the scenes, like I mentioned, or really getting to talk to an athlete about interests that they have that might not get talked about in mainstream media. But we're also doing podcasts where we get to sit down and talk to the different athletes and talk to the different coaches, and in the season we will really get to break down things that are happening kind of as they're happening, which I think is really cool. And then we're doing more and more video content as well. So my role is new within this because it is part of our three branches of all of this: written, podcast, and video. And so it's been really cool to be in a new role and helping kind of with this whole initiative as we try to give the fans more. That's what we keep saying, is we just want to give everyone more. We want everyone to know our athletes more in depth, know our teams more in depth, know our coaches more in depth. And so that's the goal, and that's what I try to do as much as possible, whether it's doing stuff like this or just writing about them or getting them on the podcast, whatever it may be. It's just we just want to give our fans more. We want to give our athletes the platform, especially for the teams that might not get it usually.
That's right. It's definitely for the Pitt diehards who want, to learn and watch as much as they want. So I'll definitely be tuned in every week or so. This is definitely for the diehard fan to get all the if you're a Pitt junkie, get all the content you want. So that's amazing to hear. It's definitely exciting. So yeah, I saw you. We're at the first day of training camp on Wednesday. So I guess, it's a brand new season. I guess what were your overall thoughts on what you saw, and where did any things really stood out to you about this team at the first couple of days of training camp?
Yeah, I've been to all 3 days now as
Nice.
we record this on Friday. I've
Mhm.
been to all 3 practices, and I will say, I mean, my number 1 takeaway right now is, I cannot stop talking about CJ Lee. If you see me on Twitter, I have talked about CJ Lee quite a bit. I think, what he is doing after having the season, or the lack of a season he had last year after getting injured at the end of 2024, missing most of this past year, even after being presumed to probably take a bigger role in 2025. Oh man, is he taking advantage of his reps? The offense gets blur stickers on their helmets when they have an explosive play. And yesterday he had 3. Yesterday on Thursday he had 3, as in he got 3 on day 1 of practice. And then walking in on Friday morning, he had a 4th. And so
Crazy.
yeah, he is just making such an impact right off the bat, which I think is huge, especially as we continue to talk about how this, wide receiver room is developing. It's no question, or it's not news that they've lost some major talent out of that room, and how is that going to unfold? And I think CJ Lee is really making a case for, I mean, being one of, if not the top guy this year. So that's a big one. I'm enjoying watching the linebacker room to come together, just because that's another area where they lost significant talent. But the way Braylon Lovelace is leading that room is phenomenal. I think he is a great leader in really helping, not all new guys, but there are a handful of new guys in that room get acclimated to what Pitt's, defense, but specifically their linebackers are known for. I'm excited it's been fun to see Jeremiah Marcelin in that Mike spot, because they'll move Braylon to the outside because he's more traditional outside. And then, after that, it's kind of fun because you've got, DeMarco Ward, Alex Sanford, Cam Lindsay. You could go down the list. They have lots of options. And that's something that I've really noticed across the board on this team is I feel like the depth is a lot stronger no matter the position group this year than we've seen at least last year. I can't speak to many years prior because I wasn't around for them, but yeah, they've got strong guys.
It's great to hear. I guess, yeah, CJ Lee, he definitely showed some good stuff like 2 years ago. Last year, I guess he was injured. So I guess he's healthy, I'm guessing, if he's this good.
Yeah, he's running full reps and everything. He said he's back to full 100% when I chatted with him the other day. And yeah, he's definitely making some noise out there. I mean, I
Dang, the
didn't
blur stick.
catch it. Yeah, and I didn't even catch if I didn't I was watching more of the defense today, so I didn't see if there were any more blur stickers on the offense. But the fact that he has 4 and there was only one other player with 1, like, yeah, I mean, that's got to be hard to do because they balance out the reps pretty well between the 1s, 2s, and 3s, and whatever group he is in, he's not necessarily getting all the reps. And the fact that he is just making play after play, I think that's something Pitt fans should be excited about.
It is. We definitely got to recover from receivers we lost last year. So that is amazing to hear in this electric Cade Bell offense. Let's talk about Mason. How's Mason look so far during camp?
Mason looks very locked in. It is very clear that he is the leader on that team, which I don't think it was a question coming in, but the charge he has taken and the way that everyone around him is really listening to him is honestly impressive, especially for such a young guy. Like, yes, he did come in last season and take over the starter spot, but he is just a sophomore and he's got freaking, 5th years like Sean or like Ryan Bear talk like locked in listening to him, and which is really cool to see because they all talk about how much of a natural leader he is. Of course, that's the, maybe leadership side of things, but his throws are looking great. I don't get to watch a ton of like 7-on-7 or anything, but the individual drills we're seeing, he's just throwing dime after dime. And I know that him and the offensive line have really been working together to figure out ways to limit sacks. And I just think you can tell that with how like together it feels like the offensive line is with him, which is good because I think that's something every Pitt fan was a little frustrated with last year, and it's something that I know is top of mind.
How's like, Holden Gariner, the backup, and have you seen anything from the really big freshman recruits at Angelo Renda and Corey Daly? So what have you seen from the backup quarterbacks as well?
Yeah, Holden Garner is he didn't get a lot of playing time at his previous institutions, but you can tell that he is seasoned in the sense of, well, this is his first Pitt training camp. This is not his first training camp. And he has really bought in to the style of Pitt's offense. I think it fits him really well. And he's just been very steady. I think it's been nice for Mason to have kind of an older guy in the room to, just bounce ideas off of someone who's been through it. And that's kind of been his role. As for the freshmen, Corey Daly has really impressed me. He's got to add a little bit more weight. He's kind of a very tall and lanky guy right now, but that's what they're working at. And I think they have a lot of options behind Mason if needed to go down that route. Knock on wood, and hopefully they don't have to go down that route. But they're not hurting for talent in that quarterback.
Let's go to my favorite player to watch last year. I was at the Georgia Tech game in Atlanta, and Boozy just made me absolutely go wild. So how's my guy Boozy doing in camp this year? And another guy I'm very interested in is Lavelle Wright. He looks like a bowling ball, like a short yardage back. Kind of reminds me of Brandon Jacobs, an old Giants player. So how's the running backs been looking during camp?
Yeah, I mean, Boosie is the clear RB1. Pat Narduzzi will tell you. All the coaches will tell you. Mason will tell you. Anyone asks, it's Boosie's your number one guy, which I think is awesome, especially after seeing what he did last season. With Desmond Reed being banged up all season, he really got the time to go in and really learn the ropes early, which just poises him even better for a bigger season. He's gained about 15-ish pounds too, so he's a little bit more physical. We already know he has the speed, and he has that agility, but you add a little bit more weight to that. He looks great out there. I think behind him, there's, maybe a little bit more opening, but I do think, as you mentioned, Lavelle Wright, he's been looking great. We actually got to chat with him yesterday, and he was talking about just, there's a lot of youth in that wide receiver room other than Lavelle. And he said that competition level, that hungriness that these younger guys are bringing has really pushed him to be better. It's pushing Boosie to be better. And I think that's a nice way to look at it too, especially when you think about, you never know who's going to be next man up. And if they're all competing kind of for playing time, you're ready. And they're very different, all of them too, which is nice because I think different packages, different schemes, whatever you may need, like, sure, maybe Boosie is the guy for this one, but maybe Boosie needs a rep off, and so you're going to throw in Lavelle Wright, or you're going to put in Saquon Smith, or I mean, you can go down the line. Like they're not super experienced yet, but it is a room that has a lot of potential.
I've seen some tweets. How's Damon Ferguson looking? Like he was our biggest recruit last year. I heard he's legit.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about him lately because the question was asked to Pat, like, is there the opportunity for a guy who didn't come into June to get playing time? And he was like, absolutely. If he's one of our top running backs, we're going to throw him in. And he has been showing, he's been making some moves, showing that his talent level is there. I think he has definitely been one of the players in the conversation for playing time. He has a little bit of the others have a little bit of more of a head start on him since he really just got here in June, but he's been taking everything in stride, has adapted to the playbook really well. He's a very intelligent player as well, and I think that's huge when you're learning this playbook. So I wouldn't be surprised if you saw him on the field, just because, I mean, at least right now the coaches are talking about him quite a bit.
That's great. He was a big recruit. I've watched his high school IELTS. He seems legit, so I'm definitely excited to see when his turn is called. His name is called. So you were talking about a lot about CJ Lee. Who do you think will be the starting 3 wide receivers, and any other guys who are really going to contribute this year?
That's the question of like I've been getting a lot lately, because I think that's one of the rooms that you're really just like, who is it going to be? Blue Hicks returns as a returning starter. He's one of the top guys there, so put him in that mix. CJ Lee, absolutely. And then, that third spot, I think there's a pair of sophomores that are really just battling it out right there. Bryce Yates and Tony Kinsler both have kind of different styles, but they have just this very unique connection with Mason because they all kind of came up together. Bryce, Boosie, TK, and Mason, they're all sophomores. And they, before Mason was a starter, Mason was throwing with the freshmen. And so he has that connection with them. And they both add just something a little bit different that could really just make the wide receiver room a little bit more versatile, which I think is beneficial, especially when you have guys like CJ Lee who's running really fast. Maybe you need someone to make a splashy catch like we've seen Blue Hicks do, or maybe you need Bryce Yates, who did get a good amount of, or a decent amount of playing time last year, to come in and help with that experience. I also think Malik Knight has shown that he is ready for the moment. I mean, in the spring game alone, he had 2 phenomenal touchdowns from long passes from Holden Garner and then long runs. And he's been talked about as being a guy that the cornerbacks can be in great coverage, and he's still getting away from them. And so, you've got options. And I think that's, again, it's a good thing to have options, especially when you are starting so fresh. You can kind of play around with it. And I think the best thing is Mason has such a good connection with every single one of them, too. Like, he's really taken the off season to make sure that no matter who's lining up with him, he can read them well and they can read him.
So it sounds, even though we lost, Kenny Johnson and Poppy Williams, I think this room still seems pretty promising to me. So I really like those names. I really like what I'm hearing. How about the tight ends? I know we haven't really used tight ends in this offense much the last couple of years. They've kind of just been like blockers, and Cade puts them like to the sideline. Like, Cade lines them up like basically near the sideline. So what have you seen anything from? I think was it Carson Kent and Elijah Lag? Is that their
Yeah,
names?
Carson Kent. Yeah, you got him right. Carson Kent,
Awesome.
Elijah Lag, the 2 transfers, and then Max Hunt, the returning. He's a sophomore this year. With that group of sophomores I mentioned, he's right in there with them and has a great connection with them. Yeah, I think you'll see them get utilized a little bit more this year, especially with Brent Davison as the new tight ends coach. He has really taken on this offense swimmingly. Yes, he is very much making sure that these guys are all very well rounded, whether it's in pass protection or, catching the ball. They all 3 add, something a little. I keep saying that they add something a little bit different, and I apologize for that. Carson Kent and Elijah Lag are the more experienced of the 2, but I feel like this is it's a battle for who's going to be there. And I think maybe Kent and Lag are probably more front runners in the grand scheme of things, just because of their experience level. But you truly can't count anyone out, because they're all showing that they're good and that they could play. And, I guess we're less than a month away now, that they could go on the field, which is exactly what you want. Exactly what you
Exactly.
want.
And definitely good blocking for the offense. I've seen that's
Yes.
very important for sure. I did see those 2 guys are very good blockers, which I'm very high on, which is going to definitely help the offense. And let's talk about the main blockers. That was probably one of our biggest weaknesses last year. A lot of frustration with the offensive line. So I guess first, I have like 2 questions. The first one is, how has the offensive line looked in camp? And the second one is like, who do you think's going to be starting on the O-line?
Yeah, so this is a very confident group that has a lot of chemistry, especially when 4 of the projected starters, and I say that not having any clue what is on the actual depth chart. I just want to preface that this is coming from my guesses. You've got 4 projected starters in Ryan Baer and BJ Williams, and then Ryan Coretta, and if I had to say right now, Kendall Stanley, after being the most improved in the spring. I know Keith Guave is back from injury, but I feel like right now, if I had to guess, it's Kendall Stanley in that spot. And those 4 all played together in various, positionings last year after the many injuries. But the chemistry that they have built is very noticeable. And the chemistry that they have with Mason specifically is also huge. And I mentioned the sacks earlier, is that's something they're really working on, and it's noticeable in practice. And then when you add in Penn transfer Natino Olivieri, that guy gets probably talked about more than anyone else, whether it was in the spring or these first couple days. He is talked about quite a bit. He is he's a quiet guy, but he's going to go in and he's going to get his work done. And he's excited about the challenge of being on Mason's blind side. And he fits right in with the group, which I think is huge, because chemistry is so important on the offensive line. And yeah, you have these 4 returners, but Natino fits right in there with him. And then, the depth behind those guys too is pretty exciting as well. I mean, get Keith Gueva back fully healthy, and you've got 6 guys that could be in that starting lineup, which after we've seen the injuries take the offensive line down the past 2, maybe even 3 seasons, that's always beneficial.
Yeah, that sounds great. I agree with you. I think even though these guys have struggled in the past, they have a lot of experience not only playing college football but playing with each other, and I think that's definitely a resume for success for this team. So I agree. I think we're going to see a lot of improvement because these guys are experienced and they know how to play with each other. So I'm really hoping to see. Please protect Mason. Let him have time to make the throws. He's such a stud. So I 100% agree, and I'm definitely hopeful about those guys. So let's move on to the defense. The defensive line definitely lost some guys in the portal, like Francis Brewu and Jossier Whittington. So how do you feel about, the pass rushers like Jimmy Scott, Isaiah Neal's going to defensive end this year, where he kind of played most of the second half of the season, and then Nick James and Sean Fitzsimmons and everyone else we got. I know we got some transfers as well. So how do you feel
Yeah.
about the defensive line?
I mean, I feel like when you return a majority, if not your entire starting defensive line, that's a great place to be come, day one of training camp, but also day one of the season. And that's exactly what they have. Because like you mentioned, Isaiah Neal did start at D tackle, but has moved out to the D end spot. And he has been very solid at that. Like he's played really well from the D end spot, and having him kind of solidified on that, I think only makes the defensive line stronger because guys like Sean Fitzsimmons, Nick James, and Jimmy Scott have all been starting for a while now. And even before Isaiah Neal was in that D end spot, he was always in the mix for the D tackle spot. So that's a guy who's ready. And the fact that they all four know how to play with each other already, that just adds to it because they're hungry, they're ready, they know how each other works, which allows each of them to kind of play off of each other really well. And then, yeah, I am excited about some of these transfers. Elite Narn, Jeremiah Warren, both are very talented D tackles. And you always need that energy to rotate through because then on the DN spot, you also got Jaden Moore, who was very highly talked about in training camp last season before he unfortunately got injured. And sure, we saw him for a minute here or there in the games towards the end of the season, but he's back fully healthy too. And these are guys that were all competing for starting spots, whether it was here or at their previous place. And so it's just, again, like I said earlier, the depth is huge. And I think that's been an issue for Pitt in the past. So having that be such a focus, I think, is only going to pay dividends as we continue through the season.
Sounds and is Zach Crothers healthy and ready to go? I thought he was one of
Yes,
my
sir.
favorite players.
I sh- I should
You're
have.
okay.
I can't believe I forgot about Zach Crothers because he has been one of the most talked about players to this camp. I mean, Narduzzi said yesterday that he thought it was going to take a week or two for Crothers to really like work himself in, and he's just been ready right off the bat. So he looks great. Yeah. So I can't believe I forgot about him because he's been such
Good.
a
That's
big
why I'm
focal
here.
point. Yeah. So he looks great. Very strong defensive line.
Another player I want to talk about is freshman Reston Lehman. He went to my high school. His older brother was in my grade. How do you think Reston's going to contribute all this season? He was one of our biggest recruits as well.
You know, I feel like with the depth on this defensive line, it's going to be hard for anyone to get in there at this point. But you can never say never, especially with the 5-5 ruling. It's not like you have to preserve someone past their 4 games anymore.
Oh, that's
It
true.
kind of takes the, someone said it, does it take the handcuffs off? Are you able to play more freely? And yeah, you are able to play more freely. So if Reston Lehman gets, an opportunity, goes in there and starts, playing really well, they don't have to worry about, do I hold him back because we want to redshirt him? They can just play him now, which I think is the best thing for some of these young guys, especially in a position group like the defensive line that has so many returners. They're not, especially in some of the, if there's games where they're playing really well and have a decent lead, you can spice things up a little bit. And I could see Reston Lehman getting in there, especially in some of maybe those early games, as long as everything is going well. It'll be hard to crack into a starting spot, though.
You definitely brought up a great point. Like, there's no really redshirting anymore with this new rule. So, yeah, freshmen can just play right away without being affected. So, that's a great point that you might see more true freshmen play now. So, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
honestly didn't even think of that. So, you talked about how high you are in the linebackers. So, who do you think should be the 3 starting linebackers for the defense?
So Narduzzi has been very open about the fact that they plan to have Jeremiah Marcelin at the Mike spot. He said it on our podcast. He said it in Charlotte. He said it at training camp. So he's going to be your Mike. You're going to have Braylon on one of the outside spots. And then I don't think one guy is pulling maybe more than the other right now. I think Alex Sanford and DeMarco Ward are probably more front runners. But with what Cam Lindsay did with the times that he went in last year, he's definitely in the mix too. He had a takeaway sticker on his helmet today as well. He's the first linebacker to have one. And so, it's again, depth is a great thing. The listeners are going to be they're going to be so annoyed that I keep mentioning that. But when you go down the line, there's very talented guys on this linebacker room. And yeah, Braylon is going to be number one guy and Jeremiah Marcelin will be your Mike. But you have options on when, if God forbid someone gets hurt or someone just needs a break. Like you can throw Ward in, you can put Sanford in, Lindsay in, and go down the line. If I had to guess, if you're asking me to guess right now, though, I'd say Lovelace, Marcelin. I lean Sanford right now.
Okay.
But I think that could change literally on Monday.
Another guy I want to talk about is Jaden Bonsu. He was a transfer from Ohio State. How's he been looking?
Yeah, it's good to see him back on the field after missing last season. He was one of those guys last year that Narduzzi was talking about as being their fourth or fifth guy alongside Jeremiah Marcelin, who's also back from injury. He didn't participate much in the spring, so he's still kind of trying to get back into it, but he is taking reps and he looks good. I don't know how much you'll get to see him this year just because I get to watch a lot of individual drills. I don't get to watch a lot of the head-to-head stuff, but he's a guy that everyone was talking about that picture of him that was posted where he just looked absolutely just like an absolute unit, which is huge. But he's a guy that as long as he is fully healthy, he is going to be, you're going to have a hard time keeping him off the field.
Heck yeah. He was a big recruit. I mean, if you get a guy from Ohio State, you have to be good, right? So I'm definitely excited about him. And another thing I'm excited about is I'm very high on the secondary. Like, Sean Lee was one of my favorite players to watch last season. Pretty sure he was like an on-3 freshman All-American. You bring in Kanye Thompson, who we really got him over Ohio State and Tennessee, and also Ryan Strader, who was an NFL draft prospect in Miami of Ohio, went to Auburn, kind of regressed a little bit. But so how do you feel about the cornerback room? I always love watching them with the mano-a-mano Narduzzi style.
You forgot about Shadarian Harrison.
Yep.
I am very high on. I was last year. I thought Shadarian Harrison played phenomenally last year. I think him and Sean Lee probably could have gotten more reps last year because the reps that they did have, they really took advantage of. And I think both are poised to make big strides. Like they both look great in both cornerbacks, in both cornerback spots. But Rayon Schrader and Connie Thompson, like you said, are both very talented guys. And that's one of the rooms I have kind of circled to keep paying attention to at practice because, I feel like a lot of this proverbial depth chart you can kind of figure out here or there. And sure, you'd probably slate Shadarian Harrison and Sean Lee into maybe some of those spots. But, with the speed that Kanye Thompson has, and with the experience and physicality that Rayon Schrader has, it complements Shadarian Harrison and Sean Lee Jr. so well. So genuinely, no matter which of the four ends up starting, you have four guys that are ready to rotate in, or someone goes down, you're ready for it. But they've been really fun to watch because of the talent in that room.
Heck yeah. How about the safeties? I know Cruz is one of our best returning players, and I've heard a lot of great things about Josh Guerrier.
Yeah, Josh Guerrier has really taken his increased role in stride. Last year he got reps, but didn't get a ton. He's probably most known for that flocked punt he had early in the season. But he's ready. Like he has shown, he's really hit it hard in the spring and the summer and has really shown his skills to complement Cruz really well. And Cruz is they play off of each other really well, which is important at that spot. They both have a lot of speed and they've got their eye on the ball more just in such a special way that they're going to be solid. I do have to mention Tony Forney because Pat Narduzzi keeps mentioning freshman Tony Forney, and with the fact that they didn't bring in any transfers at the safety spot, that is a guy to keep an eye on as potentially getting some playing time. Now, I'm not saying he's starting, but it is a name that continuously has come up. Another name that Narduzzi had talked about in Charlotte on our Beyond the Script podcast and at training camp. And so, again, depth is nice. And like you said, I mean, the secondary is an exciting group because of just the returning talent you have across the board, whether it's the secondary, but really across all positions. It should set Pitt up really well.
Yeah, I mean, you preface it like this team's very deep. And as we talk about the position groups, there's a lot of names who are competing. So I think this Pitt team will be very deep, like we've been talking about. It's definitely a great thing because truly iron does sharpen iron in college football. So, and I want to talk about one more position group. I honestly have no clue who's our kicker and our punter. I have no idea.
I'm not sure anyone has any ideas right now. There's definitely, I mean, they're all competing right now. Narduzzi has not named one or the other. He usually does in camp at some point, but both Antonio Chada and Sam Hunsaker are competing for that main kicker role. They both have had really solid kicks. We don't see a ton of kicking in our little window that we get, but Narduzzi has made comments about some deep hits that they've had. So I like that there's a battle there because, I mean, as we saw last year, anything can happen. I don't think anyone was anticipating Trey Bukowski to earn that starting spot. And so having two guys who have, different backgrounds too, just be able to come in and compete and both have, long range, like they can hit, they can kick from far. And that is good, especially, replacing who we lost last year. And so that's where we're at kicker. And Narduzzi will even tell you that he's not sure about punter quite yet. I think you've got guys that are ready to step up, but it's a spot that he continues to watch. Gabe Russo and came in, I'm going to butcher his name, but came in to Harry Ina. I'm saying that so wrong.
I've said these guys' names so wrong too. It's okay.
But it's both of them are, in the mix, which I've said probably 7,000 times now, but it's a good problem to have.
Heck yeah, it's definitely going to be important. So hopefully we have a good replacement at kicker and punter. So my last question to you before we move on to talk about a little about the volleyball team is for Pitt, I've seen people literally say we're going to make the ACC championship game or even, let's have a 9-3 season. What would you say is the key to success for this team to get those, lofty goals?
I think staying healthy is the obvious one. I think that has been what has kind of derailed things. I think the running game needs to just be stronger against elite defenses. I think that was a little bit of an issue at times last year, but I think the fact that Boosie Turner has added that weight and he is ready for the challenge. And I also think, honestly, the main key here, because I feel like the defense is going to pick up without missing a beat, maybe even be a little bit stronger just with some of the guys that they've added. But the key really is Mason's comfortability, and he is comfortable in that offense now. You're not going to have as many hesitations because I think we all saw sometimes last year where he would just hesitate a little bit too much, and then either he couldn't get the pass off or he was sacked or whatever it was. I don't foresee that happening as much this year because not only is he way more comfortable with the playbook and way more comfortable with his receivers, but they also were able to cater this offense a little bit more to his strengths. Last year he was kind of coming in and taking the playbook was the playbook, but it wasn't necessarily specifically catered to him. And now it is. And now exactly, he knows exactly what's going to be the right thing. And I thought he was pretty dang good last year. But if Mason... Yeah, but if Mason can keep up the intensity, show that he's got such a calm handle on things, I think that'll be huge. And then stopping the run game is just important as the actual run game because that's something Pitt has hung their hats on. And I would be remiss to not say Pat Narduzzi's favorite thing and say to win the turnover battle. But these guys, Braylon Lovelace is back and he had arguably the biggest forced turnover interception, there's the word I'm looking for, of the year last year. So I don't think that's going to be an issue for them.
Hey, just give us, help Mason plays 12 games like he did against Florida State and Georgia Tech. If we get 12 games like that, I think we'll be in pretty good shape because those were unbelievable performances, especially by a true freshman. So, man, I think all Pitt fans are looking forward to Mason Heichel, and I think a lot of Pitt fans are also looking forward to Olivia Babcock. So let's just, I'll admit it, I'm kind of a football, basketball guy, but I definitely want to learn more about the volleyball team. I loved going to games when I was in college. I think I went to 3. I had an absolute blast. So, this is a big season coming up for the team. Let's just cut to the chase. How do you feel about Pitt's chances to finally win a national title?
So I have been saying since 2024, when they lost against Louisville, that 2026 was going to be their year. I thought, and I've been saying that, and you can ask just about anyone. I said it then, and I've held strong with it. And that was not knowing who would transfer in or out. That was just like knowing who we had, who we potentially had coming in. And it's Olivia Babcock's senior season. She was playing so well that year as a sophomore. She only got better as a junior. And now she's, a senior, and the sky is the limit for her. And now, but you add in Izzy Stark, a former Penn State volleyball player who won a national title as a freshman setter, won AVCA Freshman of the Year, one of the best setters in the nation. Setting Olivia Babcock, I keep joking that that's like a cheat code because Olivia could probably hit off of just about any setter, but when you add one of the best setters, I think it strengthens the team from top to bottom because Izzy Stark is really talented at setting the middle, which I think is something that was a little bit lacking last season. And speaking of the middle, yes, they lost Bree Kelly, but the additions that they added, Jordan Daly from Kentucky, who is a person who has played in a national championship game. Abby Empt returns after a pretty solid freshman season. And then they got a Dutch middle, Micah Heilig, who is phenomenal. So they strengthened that. And then you look at the outsides that they have, and Blair Bayless is back for her senior season as well. And I think the improvements that she has made from what she did in that Final Four game to now is just huge. She is a better 6 rotation player. And then you've got Marina Pizzell returning. Ayana Watson is the freshman outside who was number 2 of that class. So talented. And there's more too. I'm missing, I talked about just about the liberos, Mallory Meyer, Izzy Maston. I thought both of them were solid last year. I thought Izzy Maston was showing some real flashes of potential, and having an off season under her belt now just makes her stronger. And yeah, I just I feel like this is the year for them. They don't get me wrong. There are some, Dan Fisher likes to say that we're in the era of super teams. You look at Nebraska, you look at Wisconsin, very talented teams, Texas too. But with the schedule that they've put together, with the talent that they have, come December, they're going to be ready for the moment. Every single person on that team, except for the freshman and transfer Micah Heilig, has played in a Final Four. Every single one. So I think they're ready for the moment. It would make history if they made another Final Four. They'd be the first team to go 6 straight. Which would be really cool, but obviously we want the national title. That's what they have their eyes on as well. And while Stanford may have been picked first in the ACC, I know there are a lot of disagreements with that. But Dan Fisher likes to not have to be number 1 all the time. He likes to have to, go out there and maybe prove himself a little bit more. Not that these girls really have to show that they are not phenomenal, or that they are phenomenal, because they're very talented players, and I don't think we're going to skip a beat. If anything, they should be better than last year.
Dang, I'm ready to run through a wall. This team seems amazing. So I guess my next question is kind of what you're talking about. Like, I'm going to show off my Pitt volleyball knowledge. I think of like Rachel Fairbanks and Tori Stafford, Kat Flood, Emmy Klicka, Valera Vasquez Gomez, and Chimaka Nwokolo. Like, the program has lost some really great players the last couple years. So how has Fisher and his staff, be able to replace these amazing players over years with the girls you're talking about?
Yeah, so first of all, when you just have the legacy that Pitt volleyball has built, especially since Dan Fisher has been here, he has made them a household name in the volleyball community, which Pitt wasn't. But now they're a team that you can't count out no matter where they're at. And last year, I think that was a season that people weren't really sure where to put them because they lost majority of those players that you just mentioned were after that was their first season without them. And the fact that they made it to the Final Four in what should have been, I'm trying to figure out the best way to say this. I wasn't surprised that they made the Final Four, but if any team that I have covered of this group, of this program, was going to miss it, I thought it was going to be last year's. But the fact that they made it a slightly less talented team than what they have now, I think says a lot about what Dan Fisher has done and has shown with the legacy of the program. People want to come play at Pitt. People want
Heck
to
yeah.
come and help make history. They want to be part of this culture that this team has created where they're playing together. Yes, they won a national title, but they're not putting the pressure to, on day one. They're talking about, take it game by game, truly, because they have some crazy matchups. I mean, they opened the season against Kentucky, who is the national runner up. And then the following weekend, they have Wisconsin and Kansas. And Wisconsin is one of the best teams in the nation, especially with the roster that they have built, too. So how does he keep doing it? I mean, he's a magician. Him and Kellen Patrone, who's one of or probably their head recruiter, they go out there and they identify talent, and they, Pitt sells itself. Pitt volleyball sells itself, especially now when you see the fancy new building of Victory Heights, because boy, am I excited for that building to open up and for fans to get to see it, because it is beautiful. It is going to seriously enhance, the games, whether it's volleyball and then the meets for wrestling and gymnastics. It's going to be fun. And I think when you add all of that, it's just hard to say no to a place like Pitt.
Yeah. So you see, obviously college sports are changing left and right. You're seeing all these athletic programs spending, I mean, like 50 million on the football team, 20 million on the basketball team. So you think at Pitt, the volleyball team is going to just, keep it rolling, keep winning every single year. So do you see this, sustaining this success sustaining with Dan Fisher and the volleyball pro?
I mean, I'd be shocked if it fell off because, a lot of people said that once that class of Rachel Fairbanks, Valerie Vasquez Gomez, Kat Flood, Emmy Klicka went out, maybe they would drop off. And that was before Olivia got here. There was the concerns about that. Obviously, Olivia got here and solved, a lot of problems. But even whenever Olivia leaves, the talent that they have behind her is ready for the moment. When you add in a player like Ayanna Watson, who was named MVP of the AAU All-American game, she was number 2. That's a player that, as Dan Fisher said, could contend for National Freshman of the Year. She's very talented. Add in another freshman that plays the same position as Olivia Babcock, right side Jessica Smallwood. Any other team, Jessica Smallwood's probably starting because she is good. She's very good. So when you look at all of that, it's just hard to think of, there are going to be times where you're adjusting, especially, thinking about next year, whenever Olivia leaves is what I'll say, because 5 and 5, complicates everything. And I don't know anything. Whenever she leaves, there's going to be differences because this is a team that has been run through her since she got here. But that doesn't mean they're not going to adjust. Maybe it switches to you're running through Ayanna Watson. You have Izzy Stark for 3 more years. So you're going to have a talented setter, assuming, she doesn't transfer again, which if I had to say right now, I just don't see that happening. She seems very happy here, and we'll see how the season goes. But the talent that you retain, because there's only 2 seniors on this team, and it's Olivia and Blair. And while they are 2 very important players, whether they leave next year or come to a 5th year or whatever it ends up being, there's people ready waiting in the wings. And that's something that Dana talks about a lot. And we talked about it a lot with football. My favorite word today is depth. When they were on their European team, he talked about how they would play European trip. They played a lot of different junior national teams and pro teams, and they would play different lineups. They would just switch it up and do things that they wouldn't do come the season. And there was never a drop off on the court. And I think that speaks volumes.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I think we're going to win it all this year. That's what it sounded like. I'm wondering about, I know a couple years ago, I guess it was 1 or 2 years ago, Tori Stafford transferred to Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So what's like the NIL situation for Pitt volleyball? Are they getting pretty good funding and investment? I mean, I'm guessing, other teams were trying to maybe target Babcock, but she seems extremely loyal to this program. So how's like the NIL at Pitt for volleyball? I mean, you're saying, it's going to keep coming. So I guess my question is, how's the NIL market for volleyball at Pitt? Like, I really don't know.
I mean, I don't know any numbers, but keeping the best player in the nation year to year, especially when, like you said, she probably is getting calls from other teams. And I know she has been approached by pro teams and she continues to stay. I know she's very loyal to Pitt and she's Panther to her core. So I'm not sure the money aspect is really what's keeping her here, but I'm sure there are people giving her bigger dollar amounts. But the loyalty, and I have to imagine, again, I don't know. I know I work for Pitt, but I don't know the nitty gritty
Right.
details. They only tell me the things that I need to know, and that is not something I need to know. You have to imagine that, it's pretty competitive when you have Olivia Babcock, when you have the number 2 freshman in the nation, when you have the arguably the top transfer in the portal and Izzy Stark. Like it's got to be competitive, at least with some of the top teams, or the culture is just phenomenal. And either way, I think that's a win.
That's definitely great to hear. I know it was kind of a tough question, but I was honestly curious of like how NIL works. Like everyone focuses on NIL with football and basketball. So I was honestly just wondering like how it works at Pitt compared to like I know Texas has all the money. I know Texas has like Marcus Spears' daughter as well.
Hmm.
So yeah, I was just
Hey,
wondering about the
but
NIL market.
we have CJ Watson, former NBA player CJ Watson's daughter now.
That's really cool. Okay, that's really cool. So that's all right. Well, and I guess my last question is, there's been a lot of talk on Twitter. I've been kind of in the front of it, kind of about the Mount Rushmore of Pitt
Oh,
athletes. I'm honestly wondering what you have to say. Where do you have Olivia Babcock ranking in all-time Pitt athletes, and is she on the Mount Rushmore?
so this is tough for me because I don't have the Pitt background that a lot of people do. I will say what I will add to the conversation without having to name 4 athletes, because that would be really difficult for me to go back into the whatever. Larry Fitzgerald's on there. He has to be on there.
Yep.
There are a lot of other players, I mean, Aaron Donald's probably in the mix there. But Olivia should be in the conversation, if not on there, in my opinion. I don't know if she's number 1. One, because I don't have a historical context. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm reading about it and I'm learning about it more and more because I find, your Twitter conversations very intriguing on that because the arguments are funny. But what Olivia Babcock has done for not only Pitt volleyball, but volleyball in general, the sport in general, it is just outstanding and historical in ways. So how can you keep her out of the conversation? How can you not have her on your Mount Rushmore? So yeah, I mean, I know that there are a lot of really talented athletes to put on that list, but I have a hard time seeing a case for her to not be on there, is what I will add without having to name a whole one.
That is totally fair. I think that was an amazing answer. I mean, she has what, 2 national player of the year awards. She was at the freaking ESPYs as a Pitt
Twice.
athlete. That's pretty insane. And I'll be honest, like I didn't even know Pitt. This is embarrassing, but really didn't even know Pitt had a volleyball program before I got to school. So that really shows how much she's put this program on the map. So talk about like a person who really changed the whole a whole program like her. 100%. She's definitely top 5 to 10 all time. I'll admit it. And I think she would be on the Mount Rushmore if she brings home a national title this season. No doubt she's definitely one of one. So I'm really hoping she could do it. And this program definitely deserves it. And everything you said, they're definitely capable of it. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm gonna have to tune in this year for sure. So I want to talk about a little bit about maybe about the men's and women's soccer teams.
Yeah.
When I was at school, both of them were amazing. Like what's for the men's? Is it called like the Commissioner's Cup or something? I forget.
Yeah, you got that right. They call it the Commissioner's Cup for
Oh my God, I
their
got it
Final
right.
Four.
I know we made it when I was in school like
Mhm.
twice, and then the women's team was really good. So are the both programs still pretty good?
So last year, both teams had a little bit of down years. They both missed the NCAA tournament. First of all, life happens. You're allowed to have a down year. The men's soccer team specifically was riddled with injuries, which they had the talent to do it. But when so many of your guys goes down and so many of your important guys go down, that's hard to compete with, especially in the ACC, which is widely considered the best conference for soccer in both men's and women's. And then for the women's team, they kind of started fresh. Like there were not a ton of returners. It was a very young team. It was Ben Waldrom's first year as head coach after his dad stepped into more of a general manager role. And so there was just a lot of newness. And what Ben will tell you is that, and then, Jay will say it too, is every day they got better. And that's what you're looking for. Every day they got better. I mean, when the women's soccer team caps off their season with a program first, as in beating number 1 Notre Dame, like you get to carry that momentum into this season. And both teams are looking really strong too. And so, while yes, it was disappointing that they didn't make the NCAA tournament last year, and they'll be the first to tell you that, both teams should be really solid this year.
That's fun to hear. I mean, I'm not a big soccer guy, but I did really enjoy going to the games. I did go and just like chirp the other teams. I had a pretty fun time doing that. But I mean, definitely. I mean, even when they made it, I was watching the games on TV because I love Pitt. So I hope they can get it back going. And I want to finish out this podcast talking about my team, the Pitt men's basketball team. What are your thoughts on the job Kuntz and Capel have done building this roster?
I think they've done an amazing job. I mean, when you think about how we were talking a lot about how, all season and even before, just that Pitt's NIL budget wasn't competitive enough. They showed that that's not the case this year. They really put their money where their mouth is. And got very talented players, very experienced players, which I think is something that is very important after last season, where you asked, in my opinion, a little bit too much out of your freshmen and your some of your transfers. Obviously, this whole team is transfers, so you have to ask a lot of them. But when you got a guy who once led the ACC in assist in Nate George, you have Bainadongo, who has been a top rebounder in the ACC for a while. You have very talented freshmen in Chase Foster here. I mean, from top to bottom on this list. Jay likes to talk about levels. They built levels of talent in this to, not only progress players to be ready for the future, because that is something that is on their mind. Keeping, yes, this year we want to win, but but also how do we set ourselves up for success for the future? And that's something they've done, especially with the veteran players that they have. A lot of these guys are older, which is not what we saw last year. Sure, we had DeMarco Minor and Barry Dunning and Cam Corrin, but after that, everyone was pretty young and pretty inexperienced. And you can't say that about this team. Even the younger guys have experience at various levels. Maybe it's not the most experience, but from what I've seen in the gym, everyone's ready for the challenge.
Yeah, you nailed it. I feel like they really built a deep team. I feel like the last couple of years we were throwing all of our eggs into a basket to like a couple players, but in this transfer portal, you truly don't know what you're getting. Like some guys could just like, oh, they're really good, and just like you don't know how they're going to fit in a new environment. So you got to build a team of depth in this area, and then Jay has really done that. So man, I'm pretty excited about depth. And so you've watched the basketball team practice a little bit. Would you say this team does have a different feel and it's looking really promising?
So on my second day of the job, I asked Jason Knable, our men's basketball SID, if I could just go stop by because I knew they were practicing. I got into college sports and sports journalism specifically because of college basketball. I'm a Loyola Chicago alum. They went to the Final Four when I was a freshman. You got to buy in. And so I'm a basketball junkie. So I wanted to walk over and I wanted to watch. And you could just tell that the energy was noticeable. And that practice, they were split up into 2 groups. It was individual drills. They weren't playing 5-on-5s. But you could feel the energy. There was something there. And then, I went back, the next week because it's just kind of down the hall from my little cubicle in the Pete. And they were playing 5-on-5s. And the intensity, the attention to detail, and the fight that this group has already, the connectivity too, I gotta say, like with the fact that this is a whole new team with the exception of the 2 walk-ons and Makari Moore, in theory, second week of practices, they shouldn't really have that much chemistry. But they were playing with each other like they had been for at least a month, if not longer. And I think that's important as we head into this season because you need it, first of all, but also it just helps build excitement when you know that that's kind of what's coming out of the gym. And granted, it helps that some of these guys have played together before. Armani Mighty, Nate George, Bainadongo, and Ibrahim Soare have played AAU together. Ibrahim Soare, and Nate were at Georgia Tech together, and then Nate and Ibrahim were at Syracuse together. And so Nate George and Ibrahim Soare have played literally their entire careers together.
It's crazy.
So it's a bunch of guys that know each other. But then when you add in, really exciting players like Alon Sumler, Jonathan Powell, Jaleel Bethia, Chase Foster, cannot say enough about him. it's exciting. And you can tell that there's excitement. You can tell that there's a lot of hard work going in. Yeah, there's some frustration too, but that just shows that they care. And I think, especially after last season, we all need a little bit of that.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like this team has a lot of shooting, has a lot of, a defensive mindset, a lot of athleticism, rim protection. I think it's going to be a really good team to watch. I'm very excited when November comes around. So I know you're pretty high on Chase Foster. So has he really stood out to you, and anyone else has?
So Chase Foster, I left my first two practices with him at the top of my mind. I think he's got this very impressive basketball IQ from the jump. Like, in theory, it should take a minute for a freshman to adjust. In theory, some freshmen take a whole season to adjust. And Chase is playing with guys who are much older than him, and he doesn't look out of place. He also is involved in like everything. He's hunting for rebounds. He's taking shots. He's passing the ball. He is chasing the loose balls. Like, every single thing that you want out of a player is Chase Foster. The amount of times I've walked by, the Pete floor and he's out there just getting individual reps, like it's noticeable. And that is exciting because he's a young guy that I think could contribute pretty quickly. And I'm sure Jay said the same thing, because that's just how Chase is. He's involved. He's very involved in every single play. And I don't know. I'm really excited to see. I think I said to someone, he's a guy that genuinely could be their best player come the end of the season.
Why not? He was a 4-star recruit, top 50 on all websites. He kind of reminds me of a guy Jeff Capel used to coach at Duke, Brandon Ingram, little skinny with a great mid-range jump shot. I think he's going to be legit as well. And we have a really great group of guys who, well, I want to ask you the final thing. Well, I guess two more questions. Do you have any guesses on the starting five? Jay won't tell me.
God. I mean, no, not really. Like, I feel like it's very clear that Nate George is your point guard and Bai Ndongo
Right.
is going to be one of your bigs. But after that, like, there's so many players that could be in the mix. Like, Chase Foster, Armani Mighty, Alon Sumner, Jonathan Powell. God, Makari Moore has really impressed me lately. And he is a point guard, so he probably won't play, especially with Nate George in the mix. But, that's a guy... You can have two ball handlers on the floor, and you, of all people, will remember that was one of the biggest strengths of the 2023 team. And that is what is exciting about this group, is that there's genuinely so many different combinations you could put out there that are going to be talented. But other than those, that the one and Nate and Bai, I could not tell you genuinely. Because who knows? Like, that's how exciting it is, though, because there's so much competition and so many of those guys want to be on the court.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited about Makari coming back. I kind of wish he played a little bit more last year, but you're right. I mean, we're going to need a backup point guard, and I think he's definitely going to have a big role this year, so I'm definitely excited for him. So I guess my final question is, do you think this team has what it takes to make the not 68 anymore, 76 team tournament?
I think they have the talent on paper and from what I've seen in the gym. We'll really get to know once we see them play an actual team, because that's where it really comes down to. But with the competition level that is happening in that practice gym and the preparation that Jeff Capel is giving them, there is very little reason to think that they shouldn't. They should be competitive. They have a hell of a non-conference schedule, in my opinion, that should really challenge them and test them early so that they learn how to work through those kinks before ACC play gets around. And, with the field being a little bit bigger, that is helpful. Hopefully they don't have to play in Wichita or Dayton. But I just, with this group that they have, that Jay Kuntz and Jeff Capel have put together, it's hard to see them not, just because of how purely talented they are.
Heck yeah, I'm super excited. I'm super excited for a couple weeks for Pitt football, the volleyball team, and of course the basketball team. So Abby, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so happy for your new role. I think a lot of Pitt fans were scared when you said you might be leaving, but thank God that you're still with us, because you're truly amazing at what you do. And I'm looking forward to all the things you do with providing us content and news and whatever else. So it's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Always happy to talk about our teams.